Now, these folks have a special request that they're going to ask in the beginning, so if everybody can quiet down a little bit, sorry. All right, take it away, folks.
So hi, everyone. It's really great to be here with you all today. Before we begin, I would like to just start with a minute of silence to remember all of the fallen Ukrainian defenders who are enabling us to be here with these insights and to have these conversations today. All right, thank you so much.
Слава Україні.
Слава Україні. Героям слава. So just to give a little bit of context for who we are and what we're here to do today. My name is Frances Lee Forbes. I'm with the Snake Island Institute, and we are an independent defense think tank. We're based in Kyiv, and the mission of our founders was quite simple. So this was to bring some of the insights from the Ukrainian front line and turn those into actionable strategy that we can share with our partners and really build some of those more long-term strategic relationships. So we have an analysis arm that does some of the research that we're going to be talking about today. We've got our report, Holding Back the Sky, that we're presenting here. And one of the analysts with us from our team, Elizaveta Homovska, who has been one of the co-authors of this report and who will speak more to those insights. We work very directly with the Ukrainian military and to make sure that we are bringing those insights and kind of a current view of the front line, the innovation, what's happening. And we also work very directly on R&D. And so for those of you who have kind of some innovations and you're interested in working on and testing in Ukraine, please come and see me after. And then I'm especially honored to introduce my colleague and one of our Ukrainian defenders here, Vladislav Berehovi, call sign Bereh, who is an intelligence analyst with the 3rd Assault Brigade, and he works on tracking and assessing aerial threats from the enemy. So without further ado, I would really love for us to go ahead and get started with the discussion here. So Elizaveta, to just start off, Ukraine entered in 2022 with some serious issues with the air defense system. And can you speak to what some of those difficulties were and how those were overcome?
Okay, sure. If I were to single out one inherent weakness that proved to be most consequential, that would be the lack of the integrated air defense network. Why? While Ukraine has entered the war with real-time assets such as S-300 launchers and Bukem-1 launchers, and some of the fighter aircraft jets, including MiG-29 and Su-27, the system was fundamentally Soviet in its structure and even in coverage, and very constrained in its stocks. So when we speak about the limited stocks that we had, for instance, with the fighter aircraft jets, we could see that Ukraine had only 40 fully operational fighter jets compared to 770 on Russian end. So what we really see is rather a patchwork that was attempted to be reconstructed as fast as possible, rather than something inherently perfect that was able to enter the war quite seamlessly. And what has proved to be successful in this story is the fact that we use maneuver, dispersal, less time on firing positions, which proved that Russia could not achieve its first and foremost blitzkrieg calls that it's initially had. And we responded to a structural problem that we had from the very beginning with an organizational response.
And so kind of as the war evolved from this initial air defense survival to a sustained saturation regime, what really changed in the character of the threat that you've seen?
I would point to three dimensions of the air defense evolution. That would be volume, that would be diversity, and that would be the economic logic. So Russia has opened its full-scale war with a blitzkrieg playbook. Mostly it has targeted military targets, ammunition depots, the air defense system as a whole. When that failed, Russia has moved on to targeting the energy infrastructure in late 2022. In this case, it started using Shahed drones, which marked the start of the combined attacks that has continued pretty much up till now. But I would say the most fundamental shift has happened around 2024, 2025, when we see the large scale of the air defense campaign aimed at saturating the defender. So if we look at the numbers behind it, Russia has launched, let's say, 15,000 Shaheds in 2024, whereas in 2025, this number has skyrocketed up till 56,000. So in this case, we had to switch our logic of defense, which means we have to work through everything via cost efficiency logic, meaning that we have to strike the targets with the right tools, and so that we can be sustainable in our defense, meaning that given the scarce resources that we have, we can last longer than the enemy anticipates us to.
And so there's been a lot of conversation about the delivery of Western systems and how those have been involved in kind of changing and adapted into Ukraine's defensive architecture. So today, how would you assess their contribution to the overall system, and where have they been most decisive?
I would rather see the delivery and success of Western systems not as an isolated success story, but rather as enablers for different layers of the air defense architecture. So if we speak about Patriots, for instance, they prove to be most decisive against ballistic and aeroballistic threats, such as Iskanders and Kinjals. If we speak about, let's say, Iris-T, NASAMS, Hawks, they prove to be effective for the mid-level defense, mostly targeted at cruise missiles. And when we speak about Gepards or Skynexus, they prove to be really helpful for the lower layer architecture of our air defense, making us able to hit those targets without necessarily wasting high-end missiles to shoot down, let's say, a Shahed. So basically, this turned the whole story of Ukrainian air defense into an economic duel, where you have each layer very much disciplined for each purpose.
And so, I mean, with that economic duel in mind, we have heard a little bit about that earlier today. What now does a rational layered air defense system look like with that kind of cost curve in mind?
I would point to let's imagine a map of Ukraine, the line of contact. So from the very line of contact up to, let's say, 30 kilometers from it, we have the counter-drone layer. Mainly, those include manpads, mobile fire groups, gun systems. This layer of anti-drone defense continues up till 80 kilometers from the line of contact, where we have interceptor drones. And then from 80 kilometers onwards, we have more high-end systems such as surface-to-air missile systems, whether mid-range or long-range. We also have the fighter aircraft, and which is the responsibility of the air forces in this case. So as we can see, it is very much disciplined system where we preserve the high-end systems for the most critical targets in the rear, whereas more expendable, cheaper systems towards the front line.
And so, Vladislav, you work with observing how these kind of threats evolve every day. So kind of thinking through these threats, and specifically the tactical drone threat, is that kind of fundamentally different in some way from the rear area against Shaheds? And then kind of what are the key differences and what factors do you think about?
Generally speaking about the tactical area of a battlefield, I should say that we need to divide aerial threats in two different categories. First one is small drones like FPV drones and small reconnaissance drones as Mavics, Autels and so on. This category is completely different from Shaheds because they are operating in nearest depths to the front line, and the main thing that interception cycle is very different because of you do not have any radar detection of these UAVs, and that's the main thing. Also, you need to have a highest level of piloting because of size, because of mobility, maneuvering of these drones. They are very small, they are constantly flying above our infantry, and there are really a lot of them. It's hundreds per day. So that's about first category. The second one is about reconnaissance UAVs like Zala, Orlan, Supercam, and UAVs like Lancets and Monias, which are targeting our artillery and logistics. It's strike drones. Speaking about that category, we can say that it's much more similar to Shaheds than the first one, because you've got a radar detection. They are operating in a depth where you've got a radar coverage. Also, Monias and Lancets, they've got the same mission, is just to hit a target, and reconnaissance UAVs, they are flying constantly above the head of our logistic missions and artillery, performing their reconnaissance missions in a circle, like flying above. So I think the first category is completely different, and the second one is much more similar to Shaheds.
Okay, that's extremely interesting to kind of think about the differences between those. And then when you're thinking about kind of the entire system and how you need to, and the different factors and what you need to defend against, through this kind of regime of constant pressure, what breaks first in the system?
Generally, everything breaks constantly. But to say some particular things, I should say it's firstly logistics, because of enemy constantly trying to hit our vehicles, UGVs, which are performing logistics missions to our units, providing them products, ammunition, UAVs, everything else. Russians are also very good at striking and destroying crossings and bridges. So in our area of interest there is a river, and it's even hard to get to another bank of a river where all the units are situated. So it's a major problem too. So logistics is the first one. The second one is technical issues. Speaking about technical issues, I mean that there are some issues with drones. We receive many of them from governmental supplies, we receive many of them from producers directly, but they do not have enough time to rapidly respond with things which developed on a battlefield. That's why we need to have our own workshops, laboratories where we have our own engineers preparing and making more efficient the UAVs before they come to our positions. It also requires additional funds, so it's quite hard to make a really efficient unit in terms of everything. In terms of everything must work like a clock, but it is what it is. So speaking about main threats, I would say that it's logistics and technical issues.
And how would you say that you are able to kind of maintain this combat effectiveness in this under this kind of regime, with thinking about some of these factors that are going to break inevitably or break first?
Generally, have to manage these risks. You mean that it's about constantly development of managing the operations. Our commanders are constantly learning how to avoid this situation. We also, as an analyst, I am trying to detect all the strikes of Russian UAVs to avoid them, to make the routes for our units to avoid the strikes. It's an ecosystem of constant learning and scaling everything. So that's how it works generally.
And then kind of right now, a really, really hot topic is interceptor drones as we're thinking about kind of flipping that cost curve. How do you assess those? Are they part of the kind of like layer of the air defense system, or is it just one system?
I would say that interceptors have already become a full layer. I should say that more than 50% of our destroyed targets are with the usage of interceptors, so they are our main main thing to destroy Russian UAVs and so on. It's also got its own ecosystem of producers and users. But it also need to be developed, as previous speaker said, about supply chain. Also, as I said before, it's about developing the producers' capabilities. It's also about developing our own laboratories and workshop where we constantly developing the UAVs. So generally, I should say that interceptors are, I think it's already top one asset to strike Russian drones, and I think that it only should be bigger and bigger in a time.
All right, and then kind of a question for both of you is if you were in a position here to advise a foreign ministry of defense, such as our friends here in Poland, what advice would you give them if they could only improve kind of one aspect of their air defense system? What would you consider the key? Elizaveta, let's start with you.
I would probably say invest into the interceptor drones. As Vladislav has said, has become an indispensable layer of the air defense against Russian targets. It is easier to scale up, and if your counter drone layer is inefficient, you force the more high-end systems to engage, let's say, Shaheds or more tactical level drones, which is unreasonable in the longer term. So yeah, I would say about interceptors, but nothing of it is possible without detection, radars, command and control. So this is something that comes as the bottom of the stack.
I should say that the first thing everyone should develop is people is the main asset of every country, of every army. Um, First of all, it's obviously an army in terms of defense. I'm speaking about knowledges, experience, physical and mental side, of course, and but it's not only about army. It's also about public sector. It's about growing the new generation of engineers. It's also about producers. It's about everything. So in army, you need to constantly learning on different operational scenarios. You also need to speak with producers to say them about your experience, to give your expertise to them, to make their product much better, to make them more competitive on the market. And it's not only about Ukraine, it's about Europe and the world. So if you got something interesting for us, you can invite us for a meeting with my colleagues from Snake Island, and we'll see what you have. And surely we can try it on a battlefield, because it's too hard to make something, and it's much more harder to implement it on a battlefield.
And then just to kind of build off of that question about people, what in your experience has been kind of the best way to facilitate a transfer of knowledge or transfer of experience with either between brigades or with some of our foreign partners?
Great question. I think it's mostly about the conversation between brigades and public sector. So civilians need to know what's happening in army to be more efficient too, and that's the thing which will make us more efficient too. I am as a previous civilian. I was not in army before the full-scale invasion, and a couple years after it, I was trying to completely know what is happening in army, because when I joined it, I should know what's happening, and it much more easier to adopt me to the environment in army than if I was know anything. Um, it's also about producers, as I said. The main thing is to be competitive, so I think they obviously need to speak with army, to test it with army, to test it on a battlefield, to test it on a training fields everywhere, and of course constant development, because it's also about analyzing our enemy. Russians are constantly developing too, and we need anything which can make us asymmetrically to them. Because of their resources, we need to think asymmetrically, and that's the key to our success, I think.
And then in the work that you do, kind of assessing the emerging threats, what do you view as perhaps the most key or interesting emerging threat this year that you're going to have to think about countering?
You're asking about the main threat from this
For
year?
the coming year,
For
yeah.
the
What
coming
do you see
year.
as kind of an
Okay,
emerging
okay.
trend?
I think that the main threat is detection. I think that detection is the key generally in interception process. I know Russians making some things which make our radars blind, and so we are also making blind too. It's also about electronic warfare, because any unit lost too many drones to our and enemies' electronic warfare. It's a question, surely. So generally, I think that these two main threats, that electronic warfare and detection of enemy drones, are the most things which are hard to beat.
Well, thank you so much for those insights. From both of you, we all here really, really appreciate it. And Vladislav, thank you again for the work that you do. I would like to just go ahead and thank Resilience again for having us here today. Kind of as we're thinking about the evolution of these threats, we would like to really focus on how we can partner with you all, kind of strategically, because what makes Ukraine stronger will make everyone here stronger as well. And so we're always looking for ways to work together. And so if there's more you'd like to speak about with us, we would welcome a conversation afterwards. Thank you all again.
Okay.